Are you coming to the all-staff meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
I'll be there. It won't take me as it won't be as long getting to Dothan as it was to Blackshear. Man, I showed up at that place 45 minutes before I had to be at the church before the service started.
Oh wow, that was a razor's
I
edge.
flew into that motel room, jumped in the shower, changed clothes, ran out the door.
Had you already written your sermon?
Oh, Lord. Good night. Hey, you say that. Are we on the air?
Do you want to be?
No. Well, because
I hit it.
He hit it.
I can't tell. There is a guy that you all know that I am convinced, he spoke for me almost every year at pastor's conference. I am convinced he would sit down and he would write his sermon while he was sitting there in his head.
How dare you talk about Barry Chesney like that?
No.
No, I know that's not true. When Barry preaches...
No, this guy has a mind. Let me just say, it's Al Mohler, Dr. Mohler.
Oh, that he has an incredible
He has
mind.
a mind that's able to do that. You know, just sit
Incredible.
down and he's looking at text, and I'm sitting there behind him, and I know he is formulating his message while he's sitting here.
He's incredible. I used to listen to his briefing podcast.
Yeah,
a lot.
those are excellent. Those are invaluable.
Mind blowing.
They
Yes.
really are.
Really, really helpful cultural commentary. Yeah, so we'll recommend that to you. The briefing podcast with Mohler. I can't listen to it every day though. It makes me too sad. You know what I mean?
You are not alone. I'm the same way. You know, there are certain things that happen that I want to hear. I want to get his perspective. But it's the same way with news. I've just stopped listening to the news.
It's too much.
I don't play it in the radio, in the car. I don't watch it. I go to bed and Debbie sits up and she watches it.
Apparently, there was something really big that happened in the news this past week, something with debt or something. I don't really know what happened, but I showed up yesterday and Josh said, under no circumstances are you allowed to play Jesus Paid It All this Sunday.
No. I want to tell you so much of,
Don't go into it. Don't go into it.
I won't.
It's
Good.
just
Thank you.
Don't join
Thank you
that
for
part of the
pulling me
conversation.
back.
But he was just like, "There's a cup," and you know what? Actually, 10,000 Reasons. Don't sing that one either. He was cracking me
A
up.
lot of that stuff last week was just blasphemous, in my opinion. It was beyond
really,
sacrilegious.
It was really rough out there. Leave it to Twitter, everybody. Leave it to Twitter.
Yeah.
But you and Michael Catt are still doing a great job. You're redeeming Twitter for us all.
Well,
with
we're
it.
trying. We have a good time with that.
That is pretty
Have a
funny.
good
Yeah,
time.
if you guys haven't already, you need to check out the conversations between Pastor and then Pastor Michael Catt as well, because they outdo one another in showing honor over the size of your libraries. That is so
We just
funny.
have a lot of fun with it.
Oh,
Other
boy.
people on there losing their mind. I thought, well, let's just do something fun.
No,
here.
there's nothing worth losing your mind over. Although I thought about you yesterday, so I go home, and we had the widows banquet, which that was actually we should
That
talk
really
about
was
that. But
nice.
that was
Yeah,
really beautiful.
It was.
We resurrected
fun.
the Valleydale Men's Quartet. It became a quintet, and we sang together there at the banquet. And well, you made me laugh because you talk about how you never do anything without being prepared ahead of time. And then you were like, I'm not going to say anything today. Kirkwood, you just handle it. And you were like, just speak extemporaneously. Speak extemporaneously.
Yeah, well, I've preached twice yesterday. I thought these people don't want to hear me again. And I thought, what am I going to say now? My mind is,
Turn to
once you
mush.
get your brain on one thing, it's hard to shift it.
No,
or it
I
is
get
for
it.
me to shift it to a different.
No, I'm with you. It takes a lot of energy. But so I came home after that, and I turned on the TV because I'm like, man, when's football season start? I didn't even know when football season starts, and I found out it's next week. And but there were old reruns on TV, and they had a Full House. Remember that show, Full House, was on, and I was like crying, laughing. I was loving it. Maybe Full House is my Andy Griffith or something like this. But then my daughter, she's almost 6 years old. She comes down from nap time, and then she sits on my lap and she starts watching with me, and she starts asking all of these questions that I was not prepared for.
Yeah. You're going to have to turn this.
I'm gonna have to turn it.
Yeah, you're going to have to turn it,
Well,
before she starts. Well, now, what is that? What's
Well,
going on
one
there?
of 'em-
What's
so
happening
here's the
here?
first question, Dad. Why do they keep playing laughs over the show?
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, she's like, there's people laughing in the back. Sweetie, that's to show you, when you react. And then like the little girl on the show does something really cute, and I go, oh, and then 2 seconds later, the oh track comes in. I'm like, see, this is how we do this. And then she's like, what? Why? Wait, why is that girl holding a phone with a cord? I don't understand. She's like, why does everything look so weird? Why is their hair like that? And I'm like, sweetie, because this is now ancient history.
Yeah.
This is the early
Yeah.
90s. This was the 1900s.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Long,
I
long, long
remember
ago.
putting Brock on one knee and Ace on the other knee, and I'd watch The Rifleman.
Ooh,
And,
yeah, I've heard about this one. That's
and
one of the greats.
They'll come, Ace would always look at me, is that the bad guy? Is that the bad guy? Is he the bad guy? I said, well, look, has he got a black hat on? He's the bad guy. If he's got a white hat on,
That's right.
Well,
when my mother-in-law comes over, she always has like the CSI and the Blue Bloods and all these shows. And one day my son was like, Dad, why does everybody on TV have guns?
well,
He
with
just thought
CS
that was a standard issue. If you're on TV, you have a gun.
is CSI that one?
Well, CSI is at least 4 shows, so I don't know. There's CSI, then CSI Miami. Pike, you know all
Criminal
these. This is your
Minds.
favorite.
I
Pike hates this.
think I'm thinking of Criminal Minds.
Yeah, they're all related. Well, what about Criminal Minds? What's that one? That one. Is that the original True Crime?
Is that
Jared's
Patinkin
First
is in
Days
that? The
best.
first one.
The Tank.
Patinkin, Mandy Patinkin. He's in that Criminal Minds. I think that's the one I was thinking
Is
of.
it fiction or is it real? It could be real, based on
they're
actual
always
events.
they're profilers.
These are
They're
their
going after
stories.
these. They always got something gory on there.
I don't like all this stuff with the trying to dig deeper into depravity. I'm not here for it. Give me Full House, where they cue the beautiful music at the end as we all learn a valuable life lesson together.
Okay. All right.
No?
Yeah, sure. I don't know that I ever saw Full House. I don't know that I ever I don't
That's
watch a whole
fine.
lot.
That's fine. It was after your time, I think.
Yeah.
You missed America.
Yeah.
At its corniest.
Yeah, that was extreme corn. That was some very
Full House
very, it
was?
was a very, very corny show. Full House was.
I don't know that I ever saw that.
That was one of the more conservative representations of San Francisco. Come to think of it.
Absolutely.
What else can we talk about? Hey, we had a business meeting last night.
We had
were
a
you
great
there?
yeah.
You were there
Yeah, I was
physically.
there.
Were you there in spirit as well?
Yeah. No, I was there. I was alive and thinking, and I just thought it was a great business meeting.
It really was.
If
great.
you've never been to an encouraging business meeting, you
need to
ought
come to a
yeah,
Valleydale business
Really,
meeting. A lot of great encouraging things.
sure was.
Pastor Jeff gave this one report about what's going on in Old Town. This
Right.
is maybe my favorite part. And he said, and we've spent, of the congregation's, resources, we've spent, it was, I don't know.
800 and some odd thousand.
Like $800,000, and Ken, and so then Pastor Jeff says, "Are there any questions?" And Ken Pruitt, 93 years old, raises his hand and says, "Just one amendment. Fortunately, none of this cost us a single penny because it was all God's money."
That's right.
And
I know.
everybody
That
was
was
like,
so neat.
"Okay, Ken,
He is
you
a
win."
great guy.
I love him so much."
Yeah, I do too.
Didn't
And
cost
Mr.
us a
Brown,
penny.
Charlie Brown, he was at the lunch
Yes, I
yesterday.
saw. I didn't say hi, but I saw him.
Mr. Ken is 92. He just turned 92.
Oh, my bad.
And Mr. Brown is 92. And he came in the door and he said, I'm older than he is. And I just marvel at these men that are in their 90s and they're faithful to church.
Oh yeah, I love it.
And they're here.
May it be for all of us.
Yeah,
I
really.
feel like Ken gets more vibrant every time I see him. He's always serving, and
He's a miracle.
Wednesday night.
You remember we saw him? I took you up to the
I have
hospital.
told
to see-
that story so many times, Pastor. Yeah.
And he was just out of it. I prayed, you sang.
Yep.
The nurse came in and threw us out. No, she did.
I
She
said,
did.
who are these guys singing in here? Get them out of here. But no, the reason that I remember that is because she, the doctors aren't supposed to say,
Sure.
any
Yeah.
prognosis, but she said everything short of this man is going to pass away
Yeah,
soon.
she did, didn't she?
She really did.
I mean, it was everything to give you the indication he is not going to make it. And the amazing thing is I ask him from time to time, Mr. Ken, you don't have any repercussions from your wreck? Nope, perfectly fine.
Wow.
None. You would think that he would say, man, you know, I can't move my arm but this far, can't do this, can't do that. It's walking, so nothing.
He's here, drives himself to church.
Yeah, he
Does.
is a great example.
He gave-
is the example.
I got to make a thing for him like a month ago. He brought me this sermon on a cassette.
Yes, on the 23rd Psalm.
Yeah, have you listened to it?
I have not.
It's really sweet. I'll send it to you because we digitized it. It took me a minute to figure out how to do it, but it was just that was a really cool experience. So he had that on. We put it on.
I've got it on the C, but I don't have a CD player anymore.
Well, I'll send you the MP3. I put it online too.
Okay.
I guess that now I need to make it. Remind me, we need to put that in the comments because now people are going to want to listen to it. But it was from a guy down the road, and it's an excellent sermon.
Yeah.
It's clearly like very manuscripted, and I forget who the brother was that preached it. He's probably with the Lord now. It was from the 1970s. Anyway, so yeah, that's Ken. That's Ken. If you're watching, thank you, brother. You're a blessing to us all.
You are.
So that was the business meeting. I feel like there was one other thing I was going to say from the business meeting, but it was just a really good celebration. And the next business meeting is in November.
Mm-hmm.
So Joanna, do you know that date offhand? Because we should get people to mark. Because that's the meeting where we actually vote on things. It's in November. It might be the 12th because it's on a Sunday night, right? Second Sunday in November. Probably the 12th.
We'll do the budget. That's when the budget is.
Yeah, we'll vote on the budget. So yeah, if you really want to get in an argument, don't come to the business meeting. But if you want to vote on something, you can come to that business meeting.
We've
Well-
never had a bad business meeting.
We had a couple borderline before you got here.
Really?
Yeah, I have to tell you a couple of funny stories. It was mainly about my hair, right? When I got here, God, there's so many stories. I'll tell you a couple stories.
We want to
later.
write a book on Kirkwood's hair and comments in the church.
That would be really interesting, actually. Please don't actually do that. Nobody waste your time with that. And I don't even remember what my hair looks like half the time. Actually, you know what's funny is if you guys look at all the YouTube thumbnails of this show that we do every week, you can see us. And sometimes we forget what we wore, and I'll wear like the same thing every Monday, and you won't even be able to tell. Which I thought this was going to be funnier than it was. So, but you got your driving clothes
Yeah,
on
I've
again.
got this same thing I
You're
had on
ready to
last week. I
go.
think last week I had a white shirt on.
But
This
you're
is
ready.
right.
So you're ready to drive. Did
Yeah,
you already
I'm
say
driving.
this that you're going to Dothan? I can't remember if we
Yeah.
said that on air or not.
Yeah,
but you're going to
I'm
preach.
headed after the all-staff meeting. I'm headed out to Dothan, Alabama, Ridgecrest Baptist Church.
We got a really eventful all-staff meeting coming up today because we've got so many new staff members. Even Jared's
we
here.
do.
Jared,
How
you
many?
should come over here and just wave here for a second. Jared's
Yeah, Jared's here. How many had
I think
come
it's
on?
5. Jared,
No, it's
Dave,
more than that.
Victor, Luke, Carson with a K, and Lacey. So 6 right
and
offhand.
Kathy Napier.
Kathy. Oh, Kathy Napier, of course. Yeah, sorry. That was really funny. I brought him on and then
I
completely
think that's
ignored
7
him.
of them. Hey, welcome to Valleydale.
Thank you, Jared.
Setting realistic expectations.
Setting realistic expectations. That's right. Oh boy.
Oh.
We'll hear more from Jared in time to come. Actually, you know, that reminds me of that one. You remember that one day where you were like, Kirkwood, I'm so sorry I can't make it to the sermon recap. And I said, that's okay. I'll just use Brody. And Brody just sat here like this for like 10 minutes. And he didn't. And I just like talked.
And Brody said nothing? Did he say nothing?
He was scared to death, Pastor. I figured he's so
The
quick
guy
on his feet.
behind the camera is terrified to get in
wasn't
front of
ready.
the camera.
He wasn't ready for it.
That's funny. That's funny. Old Brody, we miss him.
You finished up your Philemon series yesterday.
did.
And
I
you were
finished it up.
preaching on Paul. See what letters I write with my own hand.
Yes, I am writing this with my own hand. I will repay.
Continuing to talk about forgiveness. You
Yeah.
said a couple things. You said several things that were really, really interesting to me. One is this concept, because forgiveness is so tied to memory and how we like struggle so much with forgiving people of things that just ring in our head. And you said, is this true that our brains can make 600 memories a second?
Yeah, that's right.
That is, How is that?
Now, I don't
even
know. I don't know
possible?
how they test that kind of stuff,
I
but
guess it's like synapses or something. I
yeah,
don't know.
you know, you've got this electrical charge, and it between the synapses, and there's a chemical release, and that just kind of embeds that into your mind.
And we saw, and you illustrated that in that Corrie Ten Boom illustration where
Yeah.
she couldn't let things go, and that pastor, that Lutheran pastor or priest or whatever, said, well, that's kind of because you're retracing it over and over. You're like renewing the memory.
Yeah, you cannot. You know, we can't forget. God gave us a memory. God
Right.
is the one who
He did that on
gave
purpose.
us a memory, and He did it for purpose. And I made the comment yesterday, while you are not able to forget your sins, you're able to benefit from the memory of it. From the memory, I can be thankful. God's forgiven me of that, which is what Paul is saying in Romans chapter 8, verse 1. There's therefore now no condemnation in Christ. Thank you, Lord. I think about my
Right.
past sin.
Right.
I've been forgiven of it. I can think of Romans 8, 1. So I think about it and I can be thankful. I think about it and it will extinguish pride in my life.
That's a big one,
As
yeah.
Paul was talking about in 1 Timothy chapter 1, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. You know, he says, I'm the chief of all sinners.
Right, right.
It humbles me when I stop and think about, I'm not better than my brother. I'm humbled when I think about my sin. And then God uses it as an example. Paul said that, you know. God uses me as an example to those that are lost, that look, he can save me. And Paul talks about his own sin. He says there was the sin of blasphemy. There was the sin of basically killing people,
right.
murdering them,
Yeah.
being responsible for their murder. And then one other, it's right there in 1 Timothy. Here I am sitting right here
Oh,
on
you've
top
got
of
it all memorized.
And he,
I think that's really interesting. This is an interesting study to me on how God uses our memory. Sorry. go back to
he
that.
says blasphemy, persecutor, and violent aggressor. Now those are just three of his sins.
Yeah, and obviously.
So see,
there's
he
more.
didn't forget his sin because we've got this thing in our mind. We heard some preacher say at some point, well-meaning, and we understand what he means by that. And I think, and it's basically, well, you haven't forgiven if you haven't forgotten.
Right.
Well, I can't forget. You know, it's not impossible, but I can replace those bad memories.
Well, there's a certain sense of the meaning of forget. Like we even see that. Like I read Psalm 103 in the service yesterday. It talks about how God doesn't remember our sin anymore. Takes it as far away as the east is from the west. Well, I mean, if he forgets it, like how is he moving it around? I don't know. And God himself says in other places, like he's not a man that he should forget. Like he never forgets any of his promises. So he's not literally forgetting what we've done. It's just that the eternal effects of the sin are completely wiped away. What do you got?
For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that each one may be recompensed for his deeds in the body according to what he has done, whether good or bad.
2 Corinthians 5.
So what you've just said is exactly right. You're a good theologian.
Thank you, sir. Let me straighten my shirt.
Yeah,
Brush
there
some
you
dust
go.
off.
Gotta let that head get big. But that's exactly right. God chooses not to remember,
Right.
and he chooses not to hold us accountable for all of that's been placed under the blood.
Well, and he's the first person with a memory.
Yep.
And that's one of the communicable that's one of the ways we're image bearers. We
Yep.
have a memory
Yep.
as well. And I love how you put that, how that helps us to be humble. Another thing that you said with regards to humility, your first point, and this was really affecting to me, you said forgiveness affirms that we owe a debt to one another. And you reference what Paul is saying, you know, like you should forgive Onesimus. Oh, by the way, you Philemon, owe me a debt, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And you took a long time to go back through in your life all the people that you're indebted to. And if you guys listening to the message did not do that in your own lives, I would challenge you. I'd challenge you there because that is a helpful exercise to recognize that like you're not you, just completely by yourself.
None of us live in a vacuum.
We're the sum of the parts of
Yeah.
people that have invested in us.
Sure.
And we
I've
can't-
had a lot of people invest in my life I could never repay,
Right.
you know. And I start to thinking about it, and I start adding to that list
Right.
who they are. And one of the groups of people that I mentioned happened to be
Your parents.
the staff.
Oh, okay. I thought I wasn't supposed to be having a big head.
I benefit. I'm just puffing you up. I'm,
sit a
you
little
know,
bit lower.
I have been the beneficiary of great staff around me, and I stated I've had no staff better than the staff that's here.
Well, I think it's beautiful the way that the Lord uses facts like that to humble us, but then also allows us to help other people in ways that they can't repay.
That's
you know,
right.
You mentioned how in some ways you're indebted to your children, but in the reverse is also true. Like
Yeah,
they
they're
can't,
indebted to me
They can't
in a big way.
Hopefully not literally, but yeah.
Literally. What do you mean not? You just wait. They're easy when they're 6. Let me tell you. And 4. You just wait.
Okay, the second
gosh.
point. The second point, you talked about how forgiveness has a wider impact than we realize. This is big. Because we always think about how it's like, oh, it's just about me, or it's just about the person that's wronged me. But what about everybody around us who knows that something's going wrong?
Yes, and everybody knows when 2 people in a church are upset with each other. Everybody knows that.
And so everybody is going to be affected when they see a resolution happen.
Yes.
They're going to be ministered to.
I think that's why Paul lists these names here. He does that at the end of most of his epistles. You know,
Right.
he'll list names. But I think here it's almost saying to Philemon, listen, the whole church knows this, but it's wider than just the whole church. You've got all of these church like Epaphras, Mark, Aristarchus, Demas, Luke, that. Now, I have to give credit where credit is due. Dr. Blackburn sent me a note this morning.
Oh, cool.
And the note was, it was such an insight. I wished, and I wrote him back and I said, I wish that I had had that insight. Let me find that note. Listen, he said, I have continued to think back to Demas, which is mentioned here.
Right.
Demas is also mentioned in 2 Timothy
'Cause he fell
chapter
falls
4
away.
because he leaves Paul.
Right.
He abandons Paul, and Paul says Demas is gone because he loved this present world, you know. So Dr. Blackburn said, I've continued to think back to Demas yesterday, then it hit me a warning in contrast to Onesimus's transformation. He who was useful became useless. The opposite was said of Onesimus, whose name means useful, that he is named useful, but he was useless when he was lost, but now has become useful.
Yes.
Paul says to Philemon. Yeah. Well, he's saying, Dr. Blackburn is saying, Demas was useful here, but becomes unuseful.
And that is
Whereas
a scary thing.
Onesimus becomes, personally, I think, he becomes the Bishop of Ephesus.
That was an incredible story. I had not heard that before. I wanted to ask you about that, but you argued from those early letters, of which there are many, from Saint Ignatius, or I guess I should just say Ignatius. We're Baptist. Do we believe in saints?
Well, the New Testament calls
Yeah, I
all
know.
Christian
I was
saints.
just trying to do a gotcha.
So I'll
on
do
there.
a Saint Kirkwood.
Saint
Where would
Saint
Saint Kirkwood
Saint
be
Pastor Mac and Saint Kirkwood here talking about Saint Ignatius, and so there's a lot of those letters that are still available. They're still extant, to use an academic word. And he wrote a letter to the Bishop of Ephesus, who coincidentally
Was Onesimus.
was named Onesimus.
Yeah, and he uses that play on the name of Onesimus the way Paul does twice in here. So that's why I think, number one, it tells me that Ignatius knows about the letter of Philemon. And the second thing is, I think it designates who that Onesimus was.
That is just fascinating.
Isn't it
That-
fascinating? That was written, that occurred about 40 years after this was written.
A thieving runaway slave.
A thieving runaway who becomes preacher. Yeah,
He was almost as bad as you were before you
almost.
became a preacher.
He was close, but
You talked about
no
like
cigar.
You talked some about that, like how, like, what it's like to go back and preach to your hometown.
It was, and I did. I had this guy showed up, and this guy was he was a Lulu. Let me just say.
He was out there?
Yeah. I remember one occasion in high school, this guy made moonshine. Now, in high school.
How'd it taste?
Well, I don't know. I didn't taste it. But he did. They found him in a ditch. I thought the guy, we all thought he was going to die. He was in the hospital for a week.
Literally found him in a ditch?
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
He drank some of that stuff that he had made, and man, he was out in a ditch,
no.
and they took him to the hospital, and he was in the hospital for a week. But then he made it. And this guy shows up in my first church, which is a small country church.
It's in South Carolina?
In South Carolina. I mean, out in the woods, this
Yeah.
small little country church, and he's sitting on the background. He showed up just to see. And I had several guys do that just to see. You have got to be kidding me. Mac Brunson is in a pulpit.
I love that.
But anyway, it's amazing. But that's what Paul was saying back here. He's saying, I've become an example,
Yeah, it's always different to preach those conclusions to the letters. I'm so glad you don't skip over it.
I love them. And so many commentaries don't
touch
even write on them.
But this one in particular, I love how Paul says, hey, if you're not going to, if it's hard for you, Philemon, to forgive Onesimus on his account or on your account, would you do it for the church at Colossae? Would you forgive on account of all these other people that are watching? And man, that was a bold move by Paul to have this appeal read in front of the whole church like that.
Yeah.
It seems a little bit like entrapment, a Holy Spirit motivated entrapment of Philemon.
Well,
in front of the church.
he says, I have confidence you're gonna do
Right,
what
he
I'm
wouldn't have done it
asking."
if he
Yeah.
didn't have that
He said,
confidence.
I've got confidence you're gonna do this. But it's pretty neat. It's a great word to us about harboring unforgiveness and the impact that it has on the community. Not just the church, but the wider community.
It's everybody. People are watching. Well, speaking of watching, you guys need to be. Well, we've got our midweek stuff that's being midweek stuff. Sorry, that's not right. Our series on depression and anxiety from Kathy Napier, that's being regularly posted there at our YouTube page. We put it on Twitter where you can find the accompanying book for that. You buy it off of Amazon. And then this coming week, we know it's Labor Day, a lot of people traveling. We exhort you to make sure if you are on the road to watch Pastor's message, because you're going back to the vision this week.
Yeah, when you stop the car, when you're on the road, watch the road.
Stop, pull off into the ditch, and pull
then
out
you
your
can
phone,
watch, yeah.
and then watch it. And, but Pastor's going back to the vision this week. And the following week, wow,
We're going to start
Exodus.
a journey.
A
Yeah.
journey
A
into
journey.
the Exodus.
Yeah.
I'm really excited.
I'm excited about it.
I've got
too.
so much I want to talk about
old,
with that.
I love the Old Testament.
Yeah, we're gonna. You guys think that these recaps are long now? Wait till we get deep into the Exodus.
The Hebrew expert over here.
I know. I've been preparing my whole life for this moment.
So there we go.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. All right, love you guys. We'll see you later. All staff meeting coming up. Thank you, Jared. His first day on staff.
Hey, man. We're done.